Okay, well, I'm sorry to have rushed everyone. Again, eye on the clock, trying to bring this in time. But hello and welcome back to our penultimate, very nice word, our penultimate panel of the weekend, the final part of the Making Comics trilogy. The Return of the King, if you will. That's why Nick is back on the panel, getting it out there. So joining us again, along with Nick, we have Matt and we have Vivian, old panel buddies now after all this time. I guess we all pretty much know each other at this point, but just for the benefit of anyone who is listening to this after the fact, maybe you could just all briefly introduce yourselves again.
Hi, I'm Vivian. I'm a freelance comic artist. I do some illustrations as well and storyboarding, and pretty much, yeah.
I'm Nick. I've been drawing comics for 12 years. I draw 7-string and Catamaran, and I'm one quarter of Big Punch Studios.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a writer and editor. I work for Improper Books as their managing editor, and I also do a bit of work for Delcourt and Soleil in France, editing comics for them.
Okay, so I guess the point of this panel is to talk about the ways in which we get our comics or our art out into the world. I mean, Vivian, I was wondering if you could give us like a little overview of kind of like the ways in which your art is shared. Now, you mentioned you were doing some work for Riot Games.
Yes, well, that just kind of ended actually recently. But so how I kind of broke through to them was actually I used to draw like a whole lot of amount of fan art for them, but because they kind of pay attention to that kind of community, they actually ended up going towards me and be like, would you be interested in doing comics for us, but just as a kind of collaboration, not really part of actually their storyline, but just something fun for the community, and it was paid as well, so I was just like, well, hell yeah, I'll do that for you guys. Yeah, so I guess with that I worked with an editor, and we were able to put it onto like the actual web pages for Riot, and like so it was kind of part of the game, but it wasn't like canon, you know. Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. Sorry, no.
Yeah, sorry.
I was taking a quick note. And I mean, Nick, what are the ways in which your work kind of finds its way to people?
There's been so many different ways sort of over the time, I suppose, but the two primary things that I've mainly started life making books in print. That was where it all began. It all began with comic conventions for me, and just the joy and physical desire of wanting to have a book and having it on a table and having someone buy that and go away with that. But inevitably, as you grow and you go along with this stuff, you enter into a web presence. And so I started life doing sort of sci-fi and adventure comics and things like that. And then in order to improve my sort of personal work ethic and to get myself producing more comics, I came up with an idea for a daily webcomic. So I would do 4 panels every single day. And that grew out of, I didn't expect to be doing it, but I sort of found myself doing it. And it was really good because even if I didn't draw anything else, I'd at least drawn that strip that day. And that was Catamaran, which was a very silly sort of 4-panel gag comic. And I released that online. And so then I sort of ended up straying into webcomic territory, and I was sort of running these two things simultaneously. I was running a webcomic whilst at the same time making my print comics and taking them to shows and selling them through online stores as well. So I sort of had a sort of toe in each pond, I suppose. And then everything sort of closed off again, because once Catamaran finished, I ran that for 1,000 days and then collected all 1,000 strips into a really big, fat, awesome sort of coffee table book. I then put that into print again and took it all off the web. Because it was so much nicer and easier and better to read as a book, actually, in the end. And so then I took that book to shows and sold that in print as well. So yeah, I've sort of gone out and then back in again, and I'm very much focused on books and print. But now I'm now thinking about some of the sci-fi adventure stories and also Catamaran again to go back onto the web again. So I'm very much sort of weaving in and out of both.
Now, Matt, I mean, if people wanted to find your work, I mean, or rather, I guess I should clarify, when it comes to comics, do you think of it as Improper Books is work, or your work exclusively? Is there?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess there isn't actually really that much of a division sort of between it. So my comics work, which I do with Sarah Dunkerton, which is Mop, which is an anthropomorphic comic about a bunch of mice in a very like Tintin, Indiana Jones style adventure, is published by Improper Books. And so is Knight and Dragon, which I did with Bevis Munson, who, both of them are fantastic to collaborate with. Our work, we tend to distribute, we do like direct sales, which is at conventions themselves. We also sell directly to shops that very kindly stock kind of like our books. We do digital distribution too, so all of our books are available on various kind of platforms and stuff. So if there is like an electronic device, you should hopefully be able to get our books on it. But there's many different avenues that we get our work out there. I mean, as well as that, we work with distributors. So our books go through Diamond, both here in the UK and in the US. And we also do foreign rights sales. So some of our titles have been picked up overseas and are published in other languages.
I guess my question to all of you would be, if a layperson, if a man on the street was interested in your work and you had to point them somewhere, do you think it's a strength or a weakness to have multiple platforms to point them to? Or is it better, is it better to have one platform which gets 100% of your attention, or to try and get your artwork in as many places as possible?
I personally think it's better to have it in one place, or if anything, like how I do it is I have all of the links on my portfolio. So if I did place for example, my League of Legends comics is on the League of Legends site, but then I have my own personal comics on like even Tapas or Tumblr or something like that, then you have all of it on your website and you just have like the kind of hyperlinks. It's like, I think it's a lot better that way, because then you kind of keep to your brand as well as that, because if you're like all over the place, sometimes you don't really know where you kind of fit in,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we keep like a hub of all the information, much like you, on like our website. But I guess for us, the main thing which we actually try to do is work with comic shops. They have far more reach and, in some respects, expertise that we don't have. So I guess our normal way of kind of launching a book is we'll try and get it to comic shops the weekend before we'll launch it at a convention. The direct sales that we do are only convention sales. So if someone has actually asked a copy of our work, we then point them to their nearest store, to the nearest shop. And then with digital, we tend to follow probably about 2 months after the print release to make sure that the shops themselves have a fair bite at selling our books in the first place. Because it just seems only kind of like fair that they're going to the effort of stocking the books, selling the books kind of like for us, and it's taking up space in their shop. So what we can do to support them is kind of like paramount to us. So, and that does pay kind of like dividends. So, for instance, we work very closely with people like Page 45, Orbital Comics, Gosh, and those kind of shops. I mean, when one of our new books comes out, Page 45 will order in the hundreds, like 400, 500 copies at a time. Similar with those other kind of shops and stuff. So we'll shift a couple of thousand between the conventions and the release of the books in the shops.
We probably have something more of a focus, I suppose, on selling online. Because Seven String and Catamaran, my two books, also sort of come under the Big Punch Studios umbrella, which is the four of us, me, John, Ali and Lucy, who work together. All of our books sort of sit under this sort of greater, bigger brand that we've created. And the idea is they're actually very closely linked. They not only inhabit the same universes, but they're all available through the bigpunchstudios.com store. So the very first place we would ever shout about buying any of our stuff is that site, because what's so good about it is it serves as a sort of central hub. It describes all the stories. It's a great landing page to learn about those, and there's a store there to buy them as well. But we do also massively focus on each title having its own web identity as well. So Seven String's got its own website, Catamount's got its own website, Afterlife Inc. has got its own website. And this is good because you get the sort of entrances that way as well, and each of those have their own stores as well. So essentially all the orders come through to us in the exact same way, but depending on whether you're just a Seven String fan and Big Punch Studios is sort of irrelevant to you, or if you discover us as Big Punch Studios and then filter out to discover other stories, it benefits both ways. So we focus massively on promoting ourselves online, selling through our online stores, and then really the only physical sales at the moment that we're pursuing are shows, although we are considering reaching out to bookstores as well, and that's a new challenge that we're going to potentially sort of approach, but again as Big Punch Studios, like as a publishing company, just a publishing company that only publishes our stuff.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important kind of aspects of it. I mean, like in Proper Books, very similar to you guys, we are a small studio and we all got together because we had more reach, more punch, sort of like all together. So that branding kind of helped us bring together kind of like all our expertise helps us as well. It keeps us honest. It pushes all of us to go that kind of extra mile. So hopefully that's like reflected in the stories that we tell, but also the quality of like the books that we kind of produce. But that diverse kind of like method of having not just a central hub, but kind of specific kind of sites, specific smaller hubs for each kind of the books is great because you capture a wider net. You're casting it a lot further by having.
And we've seen amazing like cross-pollination through it as well. So like before we teamed up, Jon's comic Afterlife Inc. and my comic Seven String sort of had their own fan bases anyway. And ever since they sort of became part of a greater sort of thing. And also we did a crossover event where fans of each would buy that book and be introduced to those other characters. It bled across, and that's something very specific to us because what we're doing is very much only publishing our own stories, and we're happy to collaborate and bring everything so tightly knit together. But it does work very well in that respect. So,
Vivian, I wanted to ask actually, from your perspective, operating as an artist and taking on commissions and stuff, for you, what do you see as the end goal when it comes to getting it out there? So when somebody enjoys your work online, or they share it, or they maybe pledge to give you money or something, is that the end of the journey of your artwork, or would you consider something like maybe a physical commission or posting work out as the end goal?
I guess it really just depends on what they want. A lot of my fans, they tend to only want digital products, but I think if they do want like a physical copy, then I will try and get that out to them as like best as I can. But I think what I try to do is communicate as much as you can, but also keep them interested, because I find your best kind of clients are the ones who are so enthusiastic about you and they're like your biggest fans, and they'll keep coming back to you. So you have to you give them what they want, but also a little bit more, just so like they keep like giving you that money. But for like my Patreon, for example, like it is like my kind of support network, but also I think it's really nice to give your fans some reward, and you want to make it something that's like enjoyable to both like you and your fans, like something you like all are interested in. So like my fans, like a lot of them specifically follow me for like I guess like fan art, so I will try to give that to them, but also I will also give them my exclusive like original work, so they can have like that a little bit more on the side.
I guess talking about the digital side of things, this is maybe something for all of you. I think for the longest time, maybe downloads were seen as the digital currency. It's like there's an exchange, you exchange money, and in return, here's a link, you can access something. How do you feel that downloading a digital product sits against it living online somewhere and simply having access to it, be it a webcomic, be it maybe a Patreon post which is behind a paywall? I mean, do you think there's any merit in sending download links to original files, or do we just want content to be hosted somewhere?
I think it's better if it's just like right out there, because when it's kind of the same like how I feel like when you see like a download link, you kind of don't know what you're in for. It's a bit like a bit shady, but I think it's a lot better if you can get your artwork out there like as quick as you can, because people will take it in better. But also like if you have like a whole wall of your artwork as well, like have like a central place for it, like that's when people can really start to recognize you, like, oh, like this artist like kind of specializes in these kind of areas, and I like that, so I'm going to keep following them. Whereas if you kind of post your art like very sporadically and then you're kind of all over the place, people won't remember you, you know? It's quite difficult to get people's attention that way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a huge amount of blurring now going on because all of our devices are practically permanently connected to the internet now.
Yeah.
The need to actually have downloaded an item is starting to become less and less important and relevant, I think, to people, because they know that they're going to have signal or data at any point anyway to just go on the site where it's all hosted anyway. But I do think there is still a desire for ownership, and I think comics were sort of born out of this, and it has translated a little bit into the digital sphere, which is that, you know, people like to have a collection, and it may form a collection on their device. And it may be that they are more conscious about their data or their usage or whatever. So I think it's always good to maintain an ability to download, say, a PDF version of something. But we on our website have download versions of all of our quarterly magazine that we bring out, and we use Gumroad, which is a really good sort of plugin you can put into a website, and it looks, because you're absolutely right about the dodginess of a link. It's like, what's that? Oh god.
Yeah.
But Gumroad creates a sort of interface, and it's like pay what you want. So you can pay nothing, or you can pay a little bit, and that works quite well because people are like, you know what, I'll chuck them 50p, and that sounds like it would be an insult, but it actually kind of isn't, because it's out there for free anyway, and so people treat it like a tip jar. Almost. It is actually really, really good. So it gets rid of the weirdness of a link, and it makes it feel more legit.
Yeah, I mean, Gumroad is good for that. Like, especially if you know what you're getting. Like, if you're trying to download your monthly comic or something, you're getting exactly what you want. But I think for Patreon, like, I see some illustrators, like some that I pledge to, they don't really have like a set like rule of like artwork they're gonna like post every month. It's just kind of like, oh well, here's something that I have, I guess. So that's when you kind of don't know what you're getting. In like some months you get more, some months you don't really get much. So I think it's just kind of better if it's kind of all out there, so you know.
Clarity, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I guess that it also depends on the platform that you're using and stuff. So, I mean, trusted platforms such as Comixology or kind of like iBooks, even things like, I guess, was it Drive-Through Comics? Comic Drive-Through, I always say it the wrong way around. People are using them anyway, they kind of understand them. And there's now, like, I guess kind of the halfway house kind of system, like almost like Netflix for comics. Was it Comic House?
Comic House
came out kind of recently. So there's different ways for people to actually kind of interact kind of with your work. I don't think it hurts to have it across multiple platforms, because it's what the like the end user basically is happy with and how they want to digest the sort of material. So being able to give it out in various kind of different formats to whatever they need, it's really good. But the Patreon kind of model and being able to actually just put it up and have it one collection online in one space is fantastic as well. But we tend to shy away from that because we tend to always sell complete packages of books.
Sure.
Do you feel, and this goes out to all of you now, do you feel there are still misgivings about paying for something digitally? Or not, I misspoke. For paying for a digital product, is there still? Do you think you're fighting against an assumption that if something is online, it's inherently free?
I feel like it's changed a little bit now. I think back then, it's kind of a bit dodgy. Like, everyone's always taking each other's photos because they think, you know, it's free, it's online. But I think now, like, especially with the younger generation, I think they kind of understand that actually there's a creator behind this, and, you know, like, you don't own this artwork, and a lot of them are more than happy to like pay for like your artwork as well, or like even like give you commissions, and like not necessarily like a lot of them can afford like printed products either. So I think what like nowadays we're a bit more open to just having like digital products, and I think that's okay.
I think part of it is because the platforms have improved so much. So
exactly.
Like back in the day, it was like, oh, I'll send you my PayPal link or something, and or you'd install a PayPal button in some horrible HTML on your page or something, and it would just look awful. And I think there was a lack of trust there, and so a lot of things would end up maybe getting pirated or stolen or sent around file sharing networks and stuff like that. But now, even back then when piracy was a lot of a bigger issue, even for smaller creators, you know, they were saying if we could create more legitimate, cheaper platforms and sort of make paying for things clearer and easier and more trustworthy, then people will probably opt for that, because everyone who downloads stuff still feels a little bit dirty when they do it, even if they do it a lot, so if there was a legitimate route that didn't break the bank, they would probably take that, and there are so many of those now that I think they do. And so I think the sort of weirdness around buying something that's nebulous and amorphous is becoming less of an issue. I think I often find personally that people go, oh, I'm going to wait to buy it physically. I get that said to me so often. So I'm like putting my comic up online weekly, or I upload PDFs of issues onto Comixology, and we do fairly well on Comixology. But the majority of people who I'll be talking to about where the story is right now, because I haven't yet collected it into a graphic novel, I'll be like, oh, did you like what happened in whatever? And they'll be like, oh, no, I'm waiting for the physical edition. So I think that's partly because I'm a lot more on that side of things than the digital side anyway. So I've built a fan base of people expecting books.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think both are strong, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, agree completely. I guess like for us at Improper Books, the fan base that we have do expect a physical book at the end. So we've always kind of led with that. But I think like the points that you were raising, particularly the thing about the tip jar, kind of mechanism, I think that's a really good way to go. Even if you set like a benchmark and then ask, if you can pay more, can you please pay more? Even if you're asking for like £1 or $1 for like your work. I think there's so many different good ways, and as you said, the integrity of the platforms are there now to allow people to actually feel that the ownership is theirs within the device that they have, however they're kind of consuming it. Where before, like you were saying, you got that kind of like PayPal link to download and stuff, and you just don't know whether you're going to be able to properly view the files. Where are you going to keep them all? You can keep them on a hard drive. What happens if the hard drive goes? Do you have to pay for it again? Yeah,
so true.
Yeah, but I also think that if you have a lot of digital work, it doesn't hinder, like if you like wanted to print things out, because I feel like a lot of your fans will see the physical copies as like a bonus to like all the digital stuff that they've seen, like, oh fine, I can actually own this as well, like this is
luxury
definitely
version.
mine. Yeah, that's what it is. I
was wondering, for all of you now, I mean, what were your preconceptions kind of, I guess, growing up, or even when you were just getting into this field, about where artwork could be found? I mean, did you ever feel that if it wasn't in a shop, it wasn't real in a weird way?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think I kind of grew up around the time when art online started growing, so it was kind of a very like strange adventure that I was like a part of, Yeah.
I think when I was starting out, and before I really got into like comic cons, and I was sort of thinking about whether or not I wanted to make comics and do that, I thought the only route was that you made your book, or you made a treatment for a book, and then you presented that to a publisher, and then if they gave it the big thumbs up, then it might become a book and might become into a bookstore. But if they didn't, that's it. Like there's nothing, there's no chance. And that's what was so mind-blowing about discovering this whole world when I was so young, was, oh my god, I could actually do it myself and not worry about that.
Exactly,
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm slightly older, so I kind of remember when the internet wasn't around. And it was always kind of books. It was always going to the comic shop, and the joy of kind of like seeing the new comics, so like on the stand.
Well, no, I mean, Matt, you mentioned, of course, that Improper Books, very strong store presence by the sound of it. I mean, was that a no-brainer? Was that always a kind of...
Yeah, it was something which we always wanted to do. I mean, I think particularly like Ben and I, because perhaps we are slightly older, we kind of remember that kind of fondness of the local comic store and wanting to support the local comic store. It was one of the things which we aimed to do from the outset, was to give those shops kind of like the first bite when it comes to sort of like our books. And to be honest, they have their community. They very much kind of curate the books that they carry. They recommend them to their customers, and if you can convince the store to carry your books, they're going to be the best ambassadors for you. They'll sell it more than you can ever.
I was wondering, again, what your experiences with postage were. And it sounds like a daft question, but I wonder if for many young creators, the idea of having to handle their own shipping and distribution might be a bit of a hurdle. I mean, Vivian, do you deal in physical commissions or posting them out?
Not very often, but I have had to do that like a few times because I also sell my own like merch as well, so I'm always having to like ship things out. It is kind of like a lot of work. I think a lot of maybe younger generation is not so used to, since it's so easy to like access like digital work now. It doesn't feel like you need to do all the printed work, but I think it's nice to like have that kind of experience as well, to have like boxes of like comic books and merch is just like, yeah, you have to do it at some point, I think.
We obviously have a quarterly magazine that goes out every 3 months, so we have a subscriber list for that, and as a result every 3 months we get it back from the printer, and then there's a huge job for us, and because it's all us again, there's no other company or anyone, no fulfillment or anything involved. We have found that the lifesaver is the drop and go card at the post office. So you can set up an account where if you have hundreds of parcels to deliver in one fell swoop, you can set up a service. Anyone can set this up. It's essentially like a card that holds money on an account with the post office, and then you can just sort of label up all of your packages, put them in big boxes, take them to the post office, and literally just drop them off.
That's great. Fantastic.
And then there's a manifest on there that references your card, and then they charge it from the money that you've placed onto your online account. So rather than standing in a queue and then taking 4 hours at the desk, which is something I did used to do in the earlier days, and everyone behind you is just getting so annoyed because you've got a trolley full of parcels, which I've literally done before. This is great because there's no queue, and it doesn't hold anyone else up. It just goes right around behind the counter, bam, dropped off. It's excellent. So that's, if you're doing it yourself and you are shipping out a lot of stuff, drop and go at the post office is excellent.
Definitely, yeah. It's painful, but I think you should do it at least once in your life.
Yeah, you need that
necessary,
experience.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what about the improper books kind of size and operation when it comes to shipping? An order of 400 odd books.
Yes, because we don't send out kind of our books direct to the readers. We are just sending them to either distributors, to their hubs, or to comic shops direct ourselves. It tends to be, it's just logistics. It's UPS or other delivery kind of services. It's okay. It can always be a bit of a nightmare. I mean, if you try and send anything sort of like through those kind of services. But yeah, I mean, we have a stock room. It's just a case of on a weekly basis organising that, getting all the books together. So I guess the biggest orders we get are sometimes when we send stuff out to distributors. It depends how we handle that. So, for instance, if you're doing like Diamond in the US, it's much more cost effective to work with a printer in the US or Canada, and you go straight from the print run, straight from the press to one of their hubs, where then it's then redistributed across America and Canada. With Diamond UK, we kind of put all the books together ourselves and send them across. And sometimes that'll be kind of like a small restock, kind of like order of, say, like 50 or 100 books. Sometimes it'll be a bit more than that. So yeah, occasionally it's getting a pallet together and sending that.
I guess a little bit of woodworking is a good skill to have in any line of work. Just to kind of get like an overview of, or rather, let's have a look at some of the platforms that your books are available on. Could you each kind of tell us maybe what your favourite platform is? And this is quite a broad topic now. This could be anything from sales across a table at a convention to tapas, which has come up a few times. I was wondering, Vivian, you think of all the various places that your artwork is available. What is your kind of favourite? What do you see the best return on?
See, the thing is, my most popular place where I get a lot of feedback from is Tumblr, but I kind of recommend it, but I also don't, because it's a bit of a cesspool of crap. But like, it's very easy to share work on Tumblr, and if you like tag things properly, like it will get like a lot of views, because I think just the type of people that go on Tumblr, they kind of like hold on like the tags a lot. But otherwise, if you're looking for a little bit more like professional places to put on, I think hosting your own website is good as well, but I think I like to put things on Twitter as well, because I think there are a lot more like professional people on Twitter, and like you don't necessarily get like a lot of fans on Twitter, but you will get people that might want to work with you on Twitter. So I think like that's probably one of my favorite places, but I guess for now like Tumblr is actually the one that's like feeding me.
I think for me and for us as Big Punch, it's conventions at the moment, all the way. Not only from a quantity and amount of money made, per sort of unit of time, I suppose, but also from an enjoyment perspective as well. I don't feel like, kind of like what you were saying about bookstores and being the best ambassador for the book, if there's someone there to talk about a book, it's going to sell better than if it's just sat there, or if it's got a description online. That's inevitable, and no one probably has as much enthusiasm for your book as you do. And so if you're personally selling it behind the table and you're talking to people and you're returning fans, I mean, we've all talked about this weekend about how great that is, and we've all got a story about someone coming up and saying that they love your work, and that is worth more than any sort of money you might make, because that's going to give you the energy and the inspiration to go back and make more books, which will actually end up making you more money. So it benefits in so many different ways. But definitely, like, in terms of our sales sort of outside of shows, and it's something we're massively working on and want to improve, because shows come once in a blue moon and the web is always there. We probably have a drip feeding weekly sales that come through, which is, it's good. There's always income, it's always rolling, we're always sending stuff out. It feels really, really good to be behind a healthy thing like that. But when you're at a show and you're shifting, tens of books at a time, and that's really, really good. And in terms of quantity and just a feeling of getting this to work, getting this business working, conventions are definitely the best for us, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love conventions too. So just echo everything you just said. Yeah, conventions are fantastic. I mean, I know I keep going on about kind of bookstores, but it really did make a big difference for us, and but they are amazing ambassadors, and we really couldn't do what we do without that
and I guess
involvement.
Just as a clarification, when you refer to bookstores, you meaning specifically comic book shops or more conventional high street?
It's been a mix of kind of like things, mainly comic book stores and mainly independent comic book stores, although like places like Forbidden Planet carry our books as well. But we've also had our stuff in foils and Waterstones at points. But that tends to be very much like Barry was sort of talking about earlier, by having that kind of direct relationship with those kind of stores, because there's a level beyond that you need to work at to actually probably supply the entire kind of chain, where you have to approach a distributor such as Gardeners, or Diamond themselves sort of do it. Diamond kind of split into two kind of streams. There's the comic book side of it, and there's also kind of like the bookstore side, kind of like Diamond. Everything which is on the comic side isn't on the bookstore side as well. So you have to hit a certain level of sales and interest for them to kind of move one over to the other and be promoting your books on that side too.
If I may, actually, I have some anecdotal experience of talking to Turnaround.
Turnaround's fantastic too.
Yeah. And I think when we spoke to them, I believe the level we were operating at as Big Punch Studios wasn't yet big enough to warrant them kind of doing business with us. So that is an interesting kind of
it's tricky. I mean, I think Turnaround, the last time I was chatting with them about it's probably like the equivalent of 6 graphic novels a year they probably want you to be producing, because that is not so much the quality of the work, of course, is important, but that freshness, being able to keep on bringing new things out in the catalogue, then sells everything else that's come before. So the more that you have coming out, the more interested they are in you.
Well, again, thinking about time considerations, I'm sorry to truncate this slightly. Before we open it up to questions, I was wondering if we could get we're going to do the 2-platform challenge, which reared its head yesterday. And basically, if each of you, in as kind of succinct an answer as possible, could you each say, this is the challenge now, you have to pick one platform to drop and one new platform to try and explore. I didn't patent this came up by Corey Cassoni, I want to say his name is, from Toonhound Studios. So this is his challenge to creators this year.
Wow, that's really tough. Someone else want to go first? I guess one thing which we don't do, which would be lovely to explore, is more webcomic stuff. Just because of all the reasons that you've both been talking about that. There's that kind of like a freedom of exploration, that there's something to regularly bring people kind of back in and engage with people on like a regular basis, because we often seem to just disappear for sort of like 3 to 6 months and then go, hi everybody, we've made a new book. So like doing a webcomic would be fantastic. As to what we would drop, that's, I don't know, all of it pays the bills. I guess if we're moving into webcomics, we could probably drop some of the other digital kind of stuff, because we could replace our normal digital stuff with providing it as a webcomic.
From my perspective, I think I would drop Tapas or Tapastic. It's not really a sales platform, but I suppose it is a platform by which you get work out, and it could translate into that. I've seen very little sort of benefit from being on there, I suppose, despite other platforms having grown at the exact same rate, i.e. putting the same sort of content out. Tapas has remained stagnant and lacking in engagement. There's also some weird terms of use. I think it's come up already here, and they've shifted lately. And there's just something odd about that platform, which is starting to make me more and more uncomfortable and unhappy to be on it, actually. So I would. It's a bit of a cheat because it's kind of rubbish, but I drop that because I'm planning to anyway. And in order to pick one up, what you're saying about bookstores, it's something that's because I know Jen's been saying it as well. It's sort of something that's at the back of all of our minds, but we know that there's not a huge amount, but a significant amount of work involved to begin that process. But I think it's worth prioritising, and certainly because it's come up so much, and just what you said and what other people have said, like it does seem like a great, and it's sort of obvious in a way. It's like, yeah, of course, and I've always wanted to be on the shelves of bookstores, but I guess there was always just that slight disconnect, what with the day jobs and everything, just like, we'll get to it eventually, or we'll get to it when we're bigger, or whatever. But it could actually be that is what makes us bigger, and that is what makes us grow. So
I mean, there's a lot of work involved in that. I mean, just getting them into the store, if you get your books into like Waterstones, doesn't necessarily mean they magically kind of sell.
No, of course.
And a lot of the kind of like the deals that you can get a sale or return, you don't want to be printing, it's like 1,000 books, then those 1,000 books get kind of sent back, and probably not in a very good condition either. So you can't actually sell them at like conventions. So getting them into the store is only the very first part of that kind of process. The next part is trying to convince everybody that they are in the store, and you should go to the store to purchase them from the store.
Yeah. I think we're in a fairly strong position in a way. If we could get to that point, we have a lot of people we can talk to, a lot of people we can access. We have quite a good engaged sort of base. So potentially, if we were to break that, we could then have a lot of people to tell about it, which is good. Yeah, so that's another reason why I think it might be a good way to go.
Vivian.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Nick said. Yeah, like I think what I would love to just pick up would be able to have my books in the bookstore. Like, I feel like for me that's kind of like the end goal.
Yeah.
It's not really going to be the end, but it's not something you would love to see.
It's a big goal, isn't it?
It's a big goal, because it's kind of like once you've seen your book in a store, you kind of feel like you've made it in a way, because it's so challenging, but it's just so rewarding at the same time, even if it doesn't really sell or anything. But it's just so like lovely to see that you're amongst like your peers. I don't know what I would drop, but I guess once I probably would drop doing the like small commissions I do, like drawing people's Final Fantasy characters. Like it could be a bit tedious after a while. Yeah, but and also I think in general I don't really enjoy having to use like Tumblr as like my main platform as well, just because like I just don't agree with kind of like the users there, but at the same time like a lot of my fans are on it, like the good people. There are like some good like small pockets of people that are really good there, but then like the rest is just like you don't want to deal with any of that.
On a further point to do with getting into independent comic stores, I mean, it's a really good idea to get in touch with your local store. Get in touch with stores up and down the country. Like Page 45 are amazing, Gosh are amazing, Orbital are amazing, the Travelling Man kind of run of shops are incredible as well. And just talk with them and send them a copy of your book and see if they're interested in just kind of stocking it. And a lot of those more independent shops don't require like an ISBN. You just have the conversation kind of with them, and they'll stock your book if they like it.
What would you say is the best way to get in touch with them actually?
If you can, probably just drop them like an email, ask them, just be professional about it, ask if you can send them some material.
Yeah.
So in that opening email, probably don't try and hit them with everything in kind of like one go, but begin the conversation and ask if, would you mind if I did send this? I'm happy to pop one in the post to you, or I can send you like a link to it online, or like a PDF, and then just begin the conversation. I mean, you need to plan ahead though, because in some respects, those stores, they need to make money to survive. So you need to kind of price your work realistically that you can still make a profit by selling to the store, and they can make a profit by selling to their kind of customers, so that everybody wins in that. So the general kind of like discount is probably like 50% off of the recommended retail price as a going kind of thing. That's been like a standard in bookstores anyway, like in Waterstones and kind of foils. But if you can offer that to those independent kind of comic shops, and they like your work, they'll bite your hand off to
That's
put them
good.
on the
Good
shelves.
advice, that.
I'd be interested to know if anyone's aware of it, because I'm certainly not. Is there a database or a list somewhere of active comic shops in the UK?
Yes, I think there is one. Didn't John Freeman on like Down the Tubes put one together? Yeah.
Oh, nice.
There we go. So,
yeah.
little recommendation to check out Down the Tubes. Okay, so I'd like to thank my panelists and quickly ask, are there any questions for them? We maybe have time for one or two. There was one at the back there.
For somebody who's quite new to it, what conventions would you recommend for somebody who's only got maybe 4 publications or something like that?
So just for benefit of the microphones, what conventions would you recommend to someone starting out, trying to find a good environment to get started in?
I'd probably say Thought Bubble. It's because what you sort of, it's a sort of managing your expectations thing, I suppose. You don't want to go for a super tiny con. They're great. A lot of them can be really successful for depending on where you are, but at the same time, it doesn't give you necessarily a perspective on what cons are actually like, and give you an understanding for, you know, how to operate, how to run yourself and your stuff at a show. But equally, diving into an MCM, a massive show, like the biggest show of the year, as your first show, that could kill it for you entirely. So I wouldn't recommend that either. So it's finding that middle ground between one that gives you a sense of, you know, knowing what you're going to need to do going forward, but also not kill it for you. It's great because it's a show that's focused entirely on indie creators and us, basically. So without having to compete with Nintendo and, you know, Marvel and DC, you're there with people like us who are all there to, like Jen said, lift people up and lift us all that. And it's a great show for that. And I love it. I love that show. So I'd push that one. That's in Leeds in September.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. I think if you do want to go for something smaller, I think it's called LCAF. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's East London, right?
To get in there.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah, it is.
Curated that
It's-
one,
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
Thought
Thought
Bubble
Bubble's
has-
curated as well, but yeah, Thought Bubble's definitely a good shout. LCAF is an amazing one. But I would also say look for the local conventions around you, stuff that you could actually get to and back in a day. So it keeps your costs and overheads very low right at the beginning, and it gives you a chance just to, you know, set up, show your face, and like have a go at doing it. So you're not immediately jumping straight into like the deep end and spending all the time to like travel to wherever, accommodation for those kind of like nights and stuff, and you can then, in a strange way, I guess, like practice. So, but also it means that you'll get to meet like loads of local creators as well, because everyone tends to go to the local conventions.
Just to pick up that point, also consider going to conventions not to exhibit.
Just do that.
But if you know that you could now that you know you're going to be exhibiting, you're going to be going with a different eye.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of travel around and sort of see. So if you take a Matt's point, pop along some of the local ones, have a bit of a walk around and see if it is good to see. Because Thought Bubble is a great suggestion, but also Thought Bubble has changed over the years.
It's
Thought
true.
Bubble is a lot bigger. And I think it is much more of a struggle to get into Thought Bubble as it was before. Although I do think they do tend to have an eye more towards newer people coming in. But it's just because I hear a lot of people working in football, but what happens is everyone puts their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, right, I'm going to go to football, and then they don't get in. And you see the
Yeah, that's
split,
true.
which is just crushing disappointment because they haven't got into the show where everyone said, if you want to be in e-commerce, you've got to get into that chat.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of having.
What I find with the small press ones, because I've been trying for small press or zine things, and I just don't get into them at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they're once a year, and you have to apply again next year, and then you get turned down again.
Yeah.
You
What-
kind of think like, oh, I don't know if I should even be doing this.
Yeah, no, what is good to have is. Sorry, I'm holding it. Well,
Yeah. What I was going to say is don't be put off by that. Just keep on trying. It takes a while. It takes a while for people to kind of like notice you. I mean, a lot of them are oversubscribed now, so most conventions are kind of curated. But the really good ones, as like Barry was kind of saying, were kind of like Thought Bubble. Keep an eye to new people kind of coming in and try and rotate like the crop of people coming in every kind of year. So if you got turned down this year, hopefully you won't be turned down to like next year. So yeah, don't give up on that.
Yeah.
Well, I am sorry to wrap this up, but we have one panel left for the day, and if you want to get home in time, we might have to crack on. From the bottom of my heart, a massive thank you to Vivian, Nick and Matt for sharing their expertise. If we could put our hands together, a round of applause.